Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're taking a really structured, deep dive into a topic that is, honestly, absolutely crucial to the future of transportation, yet it rarely gets the attention it deserves. We are looking at the hidden logistical and economic challenges of scaling electric vehicle infrastructure. If you're a focused learner looking to understand exactly how we power the next generation of mobility, way beyond just the cars themselves, well, you're definitely in the right place. We're going to use the data and research in this explainer to make this whole complex topic clear, accessible, and hopefully pretty fascinating.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our roadmap today is straightforward. We'll be covering the fast-charging bottleneck, the demand-charge dilemma, Solution 1, which is grid-tied innovation, Solution 2, covering off-grid mobility, Solution 3 on fleet depots, and finally, the future of infrastructure.
Section 1. The fast-charging bottleneck. More than just plugs.
You see, scaling EV infrastructure is no longer just about popping a plug in the ground. It's become a massive engineering hurdle. So I want to ask you directly, what is the single biggest threat to scaling it right now? You might immediately think, oh, it's battery minerals or maybe consumer demand. But think of this whole situation like a giant iceberg. The cars and those visible public charging stations, that's just the tip above the water. The real massive threat lies entirely beneath the surface, and it's deeply intertwined with how our electrical grid actually works, and specifically how utility companies bill for high-speed power.
Section 2. The demand-charge dilemma, the hidden costs.
To really grasp why fast charging is so incredibly difficult to scale, we have to look at the crippling costs of pulling massive amounts of energy from the grid. Enter the demand charge. A demand charge is a fee based on the maximum amount of power, measured in kilowatts, that a customer requires during just a 15-minute interval in an entire billing month. Unlike your standard home electricity bill, which is mostly based on the total volume of energy you use over the whole month, commercial charging stations are penalized for how fast they pull that energy. If a station pulls a huge surge of power for just 15 minutes to quickly fast charge a vehicle, the utility company slaps them with a massive fee for that entire month. It basically acts as a severe penalty for fast, high-power energy consumption.
Now, what's really interesting here is how that penalty visually stacks up. Looking at the share of annual electrical costs for a 150 kilowatt charger, those blue bars represent the demand charges, and the orange bars represent the actual energy used. Notice how the blue bars completely dwarf the energy costs? At lower utilization rates, demand charges can literally make up 65% of the total cost. As power levels get upgraded to make charging even faster, these demand charges increase significantly, which completely throws off the economics of operating a station. To put a real number on it, for perspective, a single EV charging site can experience demand charge penalties of over $2,000 per month. The sources actually note this can cause a business's monthly utility bill to quadruple. When you factor in the massive capital costs of trenching, boring, and upgrading utility transformers, which can easily run upwards of $10,000 to $25,000 just for the service upgrades, these $2,000 monthly penalties can absolutely ruin a charging business.
Section 3. Solution 1. Grid-tied innovation, pushing the limits.
So how does the industry actually solve this? Well, our first approach uses brilliant hardware engineering to shield stations from those devastating demand charges. A prime example of this is the ChargePoint Express Solo. Just look at these groundbreaking specs. It can deliver up to 600 kilowatts of charging speed to a single EV or securely shared across up to 4 vehicles. And it does this with the industry's smallest footprint, about 40% higher power density than other solutions, making it absolutely perfect for tight urban spaces. But here is the real magic, right there in the last point. Co-developed with Eaton, it seamlessly integrates with on-site battery storage and solar panels. By storing energy locally in those batteries, the station can fast-charge cars using battery power rather than pulling a massive, sudden spike directly from the grid. It acts as a buffer, practically neutralizing those nasty demand charges while completely future-proofing the site.
Section 4. Solution 2. Off-grid mobility, bypassing the grid.
Grid interconnection can take a staggering 12 to 36 months just to get a permit and a transformer. But what if you could bypass the grid entirely? The EV power pods bring high-power DC fast charging anywhere, using a mobile trailer. These units carry onboard dual-fuel generators powered by propane. Because they aren't plugged into the utility company at all, there is zero demand charge. There are no massive infrastructure costs for trenching wire, and absolutely no waiting on electricians, power companies, or permitting delays. You literally just park the trailer, turn it on, and you are immediately dispensing high-speed power to electric vehicles.
Let's break down the math for a second to see how this alternative actually stacks up. 1 gallon of propane is equal to 27 kilowatt hours of electricity. So if your grid electricity costs 12 cents per kilowatt hour, you multiply that by 27, giving you $3.24. If propane is selling for less than $3.24 a gallon, and it often fluctuates well under $2.70 a gallon, then running an off-grid propane charger is actually cheaper in pure fuel costs than plugging into the grid. And that is entirely ignoring the massive savings from avoiding those demand charges we talked about.
Now, you might naturally be wondering about the environmental impact of using propane. Surprisingly, the data shows conventional propane has an average carbon footprint of 79.6 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule. The U.S. electrical grid average? It's sitting at 167. Why the huge gap? Because about half of the electricity generated in the U.S. is still coming from coal-fired power plants. Plus, it takes roughly 3 units of source energy just to get 1 unit of electricity into a traditional grid-tied charger due to transmission loss. Propane being generated on site loses virtually no energy in transit. So currently, depending on your region, this off-grid solution can actually have a lower carbon footprint than tying into the grid.
Section 5. Solution 3. Fleet depots. Mastering the grid.
When you're managing dozens of delivery vans, you can't just rely on mobile trailers forever. You have to master the grid. And this brilliantly illustrates a fundamental shift in charging philosophy. Consumer charging is all about a driver hoping to find a public station when they run low. Fleet charging, on the other hand, is a rigorous infrastructure engineering problem. The key design principle for fleets is to charge during dwell times, not during operation. The power level you need is entirely dictated by how long the vehicle just sits parked. Think about it. An overnight delivery van parked for 8 hours only needs a low power level 2 charger. But a drayage truck during 2-hour terminal turns? That needs massive DC fast charging.
To manage all this power without bankrupting the company on demand charges, innovators like Electrons X have pioneered the concept of the Fleet Energy Depot. You don't just install plugs, you build a tightly coordinated microgrid. Let's walk through the layers. Step 1 is the EVSE array, which is sized exactly to the fleet's daily duty cycle. Step 2 is the on-site BEES, or Battery Energy Storage System. This is strictly sized for peak shaving to control those massive demand charges. Step 3 introduces solar PV to offset daytime loads and trickle feed the battery. And finally, Step 4 is the brain, the charge management system. This software orchestrates the whole shebang, sequencing the charging windows so every vehicle is ready to go without ever spiking the grid. Getting this right is absolutely critical. The research explicitly states that if you take a 100-vehicle fleet and naively just install 50 fast chargers without this kind of coordinated depot design, you will generate massive, uncontrolled demand charges. The 10-year total cost of ownership difference between that poorly designed depot and a smart fleet energy depot, it can exceed $5 million. Literally $5 million. That is the true cost of not understanding how the grid works.
Section 6. The future of infrastructure, startups, and evolution.
We've covered a ton of ground in this explainer today, and so the crucial point is this. The entire landscape of mobility is shifting rapidly. EV startups are doing far more than just filling in the gaps. They are completely reimagining logistics from the ground up. Whether it's ChargePoint engineering massive power into tiny footprints with battery buffers, EV power pods completely severing ties with the grid for instant deployment, or Electrons X turning commercial fleet depots into highly orchestrated microgrids, they are driving down costs and forcing legacy utility players and governments to rethink their entire approach to energy policy.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to ponder. We've seen the massive costs and the agonizing delays of grid dependence right alongside the incredible innovations designed to bypass it entirely. As electric vehicle adoption rapidly accelerates globally, will the ultimate charging network of the future remain permanently tied to our legacy electrical grid, or will it evolve to be completely independent of it? Something to think about the next time you see a charging station out in the wild. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.